So I don't like getting too high and I don't like getting too low.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that it's boring or flat, but joy to me is like equanimity, it's sanity, it's serenity. When I feel joy in meditation, what I generally am feeling is an evenness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not way up here, I'm not way down here, I'm just in this really sort of even place. That to me is like that's the sweet spot.
Sleep with me, you know you should. Trust me, child, it feels so good. Bleed with me, and you'll see that I am all the things you need.
Welcome to the Small Bow podcast, where we expand the definition of recovery. Talk about things related to mental illness, sobriety, love, sex, food, debt, inadequacy, and today, despair. And the House of Pies, the best house of pies that there is in Los Angeles County, where you can get pies, all sorts of pies. Thousands of pies shoot out of that place every day, so get there early. My guest is Alex Winter.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Lover of pies.
Actor, director, documentarian.
Yeah. I've done a ton of different things, but usually in the service of making films, you know, Bill and Ted, and movies that I've directed, documentaries I've directed.
Yeah.
We just did Waiting for Godot on Broadway.
Yeah.
This is going to sound so precious, but the thing about acting that I like, there's this misnomer about acting where they say, like, especially to me, because I've been directing my whole life, like, oh, you wanted to direct so you'd have more control.
Right.
There's this whole misnomer about acting that there's no control and that directing's the job that has the control, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it's always been, it's not why I direct, and it's totally the opposite. And directing, you have like 90 bosses. It's like a managerial job. I love it, but you're management, right? You're managing departments.
Are you middle management or are you?
Well, it depends. It depends on the job. Like if you're doing a work for hire and you have a studio and money people and everyone over you, or you're directing episodic television where the director is, nigh on powerless.
Right.
Yes, you are middle management.
Sure. But documentary.
But even documentaries and the indie stuff I do where I control a lot of it, I still have so many bosses.
Right.
Financiers, and I have this and I have that, and I have, obligations and accountability, and everyone's watching everything I do all the time. And I feel like I have not no control, but not a lot of control. Mm-hmm. Whereas in acting, we'll relate to this just in terms of like what you guys talk about here, but like it is all about letting go. Like you have all the control other than the universe, and you basically relinquish your control to that. All you can do is just know you have it all in your head and surrender.
Right.
And that's a really cool part about acting, is that feeling of like, I've done all my prep work and I'm in total control of this moment, of this performance, and now I'm just going to let it all go. It's super liberating.
And you've been doing that since you've been a kid?
Since I was a little kid,
You knew how to let it go since you were a kid?
No.
Okay.
Hell no. Oh my God, no. I enjoyed that experience.
Right.
I always loved performing, but I'm also kind of extroverted. Sure. I'm not like I'm introverted. I'm not an extroverted actor. Like I don't leave the stage and blah, blah.
Yeah.
It takes a lot out of me emotionally, and I usually go home and need to be quiet and not have people around me for a long time. And that's always been the case. So it always took a lot out of me. But I did notice when I was young and acting in the movies in my 20s, and I'd already been on Broadway and done all this stuff as a kid, that I had a lot of trouble with letting go. And to the degree where I just quit acting for a really long time. And
10 years or?
I trained throughout a lot of it, so it didn't for myself, but sort of like talking about the extrovert-introvert thing, like it was so on my own terms.
But you quit in your 20s?
I quit professionally in my mid-20s.
So what era is that?
That was like Bill and Ted 2 and a movie I co-directed called Freaked that I starred in as well.
Right.
And then I literally got rid of my acting agents, left LA, moved back to New York, started a production company in London, and just shot commercials and wrote movies for like 10 years, made an independent film, worked mostly on that stuff. And then in like 2011, I started training again really hard, just for myself.
It sounds like a nice break, frankly.
It was incredibly, I have no regrets, like at all. And like
was what you needed.
I got kids and like I started to raise a family and I was able to be there for my kid and I wasn't all wrapped up in like Hollywood BS. But, you know, I think you and I have spoken about this before, but like there's a hyper self-consciousness that can come with certain kinds of isms or like whatever you have or whatever's going on in your psyche, because it doesn't require isms to have it. And I think that's part of my makeup, you know? So it's a weird thing when you're an actor and you don't like having a lot of eyes on you.
Yeah.
But it's not that uncommon.
Sure.
It's really not. So you have to find ways to make peace with that, you know? And I came back when I had kind of figured that stuff out.
Yeah. And then when you go into something like this, because we were, you know, we had already begun like our monthly breakfast routines.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you got Godot, and that was about to happen, right?
Yeah.
And we were kind of going monthly. And then it was in Broadway, you're going there, and you're training for this.
Yeah.
This is a 6-month run, correct? Is
Yeah,
that how
it was 16 weeks, but with rehearsals. Yeah, it was
With
like
rehearsals.
July to January.
Right. Yeah. So it was a very long time. And then, and I think what I was just so amazed by was just like, oh, the physicality that it takes, the mental space, leaving your family, right? I mean, you're there.
Yeah.
And you're doing this super intense kind of existential play, which basically is forcing you to confront
Yes.
a lot of the
everything,
stuff
all the time.
all the time. Right.
Yeah.
And did you prepare for that part too? Just like the kind of grind of really doing this.
The grind I did. The grind, that's the thing I said to Keanu, who's done a lot of theater and great theater, but had not done Broadway. And I grew up doing Broadway, very formative years, and a lot of it, like 4 years on stage, 8 shows a week through middle school and high school. And I knew that going back to Broadway was mostly a stamina issue.
Sure.
Especially that play, because we're on stage for 2 hours and it's very, very physical what we were going to do. So I started just like cycle training and circuit training like 3 years before I started memorizing lines.
Well,
So
it took that long.
I just knew we were doing the play that long before. It was lucky.
really?
Yeah, we hooked up with Jamie Lloyd, the director. He was interested in doing it. He found the theater, schedules aligned, and we were like, this season is when we're doing it.
Right.
And that was like 3.5 years before we were doing it.
Yeah.
So, and I said to Keanu then, I was like, start working out now.
Okay.
Like get your cardio, like, and he's super fit. He's like an athlete. Which is why you can do movies like Wick and things like that.
Yeah.
But I just said, really don't underestimate, this will kick your ass. And so we started doing a lot of physical training. I started memorizing lines a year before.
Right.
I mean, we were hanging out then. So I started memorization about a year before the show, which saved my backside. But I think your question, which is interesting, is like psychologically, like that play specifically will kill you physically, mentally, and emotionally.
Yeah. Right.
And because of what it's about.
Sure.
And like my character goes through, I mean, he wants to die. I mean, he talks about wanting to die.
There's a tree where they hang themselves.
Yeah, completely. And like by the end of the play, he really does want to be dead.
Right.
And so you have to get there every single show.
Yeah.
And you are re-traumatized in all these ways. Like it's acting, so it's not all me, it's the character, but it's still so much emotional stuff going on. You know, I think that a lot of other personal work I do prepared me for it. And had I not been further along that way, there's no way I could have done it. There's no way.
Did you perform that play before?
Never.
Never. Got it.
Nope.
Okay. Was there ever a night where you went on and you're just like, oh man, I'm in a really bad headspace, but I have to use this?
No, you know what? I felt the opposite. Like
Okay.
the beauty of that play was no matter how shitty my headspace, I was psyched. You know?
Right.
I was like, great.
Yeah.
Like what worried me sometimes more is if I felt kind of neutral, which is not common. Like you don't often feel neutral before you walk on stage. There's just so many things carbonating. But if I felt depressed, if I felt negative, if I felt scared, like I was like, that's Vladimir, that's my character.
Yeah.
It was just a gift. Like all of my life experience. I mean, I understand why Beckett wrote the play about people the age that he wrote it about, because they're older than he was when he wrote it. And the play is very autobiographical. but you have so much to work with, at 60, which is, what I was hitting when I did it. And there isn't a thing that character went through that I hadn't gone through on some level. So no matter how bad my headspace, it was a gift. I would just use it.
Yeah. Would you do it again?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, for sure.
Huh.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I was watching it yesterday and on my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thanks. But I came away from it and I was just like, man, I could not imagine. I'm like drained after I just watch it and I'm laying on my bed.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm like, I can't believe that you would do this 6 nights a week?
8 shows a week.
8 shows a week.
Sometimes like 13 or 14 in a row with no break around the holidays. It got crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the break like? Because I remember you
Monday.
also said like in that email before you left, you're just like, listen.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna.
I'm not gonna probably be a great guy to talk to at this point. And
I didn't do this to you, but I sent a BCC email to because I'm from New York and everyone I know is in New York and my family is there. And I sent a BCC email to like 300 people when I got there, just saying, "I love you. Please don't expect to hear from me at all, and please don't contact me by text because it will just be irritating." Yeah, because I got like 80 million texts, and the problem with text is it has that you must respond immediately quality to it. It has a temporal nature, not an email where you're like, I'll deal with this in a year, right?
But yeah, I felt terrible about it because I was in New York for like a minute and I was just like, hey, you want to go get breakfast? We can do.
No, I don't care.
Is there a
I
House
really
of Pies?
care.
I was at House of Pies, New York.
Yeah, it's just that people would just hammer at you. Right. What about now? What about now? What about now?
Yeah. So, I mean, the thing we should tell the audience is that you and I have the kind of like this standing breakfast at the House of Pies in Los Angeles, which, for some strange reason still exists.
Yeah.
And
that's because they sell so many pies.
They do.
It's keeping the lights on.
So many pies.
Yeah.
But, it's been very lovely. And you've been helping me kind of work through, I think, my own creative anxieties. And then, how to apply that basically just like, recovery in that space too. Because one can overpower the other sometimes. Because I'm trying to kind of sit here and say, okay, how do I be a recovered person but take risks in a way that I want to take risk? And how do I be a creative person but also kind of just like not become unsober emotionally about it, right? And I give you certain scenarios that I'm basically struggling with every single time. And you always kind of have answers, at least in some ways, just because you've experienced all this stuff.
Right. Identification answers.
Sure. Yeah. It's not like you're a dick about it.
Exactly.
You're just like, here's how I did it. Yeah. But going through that process where you are right now, right? I mean, do you feel this run of Godot, and then you had a movie come out, like Adulthood came out like during that time too,
it did,
right?
Right before I started previews, like the night before I started previews.
So, I mean, when that good stuff happens, I mean, for me, good stuff really terrifies
Very
me.
triggering, yeah.
Yeah.
As triggering as the bad stuff.
Sure,
yes,
yeah. So, I mean, did you work through that in that moment? Because I remember the one time when, you were in the middle of Broadway and like the adulthood book, just like that, and you're starting Godot. I mean,
I had 2 billboards up in Times Square at one point. There's a couple things going on. One is detachment.
Okay.
There's a sense of detachment from all of that stuff that it just feels like it's someone else's stuff.
Right.
Some of which I think is quite healthy, actually, because it's not like I'm not taking all of those things very seriously and working on them in a very intense way on the ground.
Yeah.
But the kind of public-facing stuff, I have a sort of dissociative. I've been doing since I was a child, so I think a lot of child actors are really good at sort of turning on the dissociative, hey, when they're really somewhere else.
Sure.
Because I went to the premiere for Adulthood, the film I directed, at the Toronto Film Festival, and we had to organize our tech rehearsal for Godot to let me do it. And I had to fly up that night, do a 2,000-seat theater. It was just crazy, all my actors flying in from all over the world. And then the next morning, it's 5 a.m., get on a plane and go right back into tech, and then go on stage for the first time the following night.
Yeah.
And as I said before, like, I'm not Keith Richards, you know what I mean? Like, and there are some actors that are just like machines, and it's very impressive to me. And I like to rest. I like to go slow.
Yeah.
I like to not have a ton of stuff like that going on at once. So it is not what I'd call my ideal scenario. So meditation, I mean, really boring stuff, right? Diet, the stuff I tell my kids when they're freaking out. how's your diet? How's your sleep? How's your exercise? Like first three things I always ask. And like, so managing those things, paramount for me. And meditation, paramount.
Right.
A lot of meetings, paramount.
What's your meditation routine?
It's every day. It's twice a day when I can manage it. I wish I did that more consistently. There was a time when I did every morning and then every afternoon around 5. But it's every morning without. I don't ever not do it ever, no matter where I am.
How long?
Anywhere from like 8 to 20 minutes.
Got it.
There are some times when I can feel I'm just so in a zone after like 2 minutes. I'll just sort of linger in for another 6. And then there are times when I feel so restless that I stay for like another 15.
Yeah.
But I have a kind of I've been doing it so long, even before I was in recovery, that I have a really good sense of when I'm not ready to stop.
No, it's like I do it every day too. Sometimes I only get a minute, but I do the minute with my children now.
Oh, cool. Wow.
And I do like the insight timer.
That's some
and
serious jujitsu.
Well, it was like, but because it's when they want my phone. And I'm like, before you take this phone, let's do this like 57-second meditation. And it's, at the end, the words that are spoken are basically this: you are safe, you are accepted.
That's great.
You are forgiven and you are loved. And then, my 5-year-old, 6-year-old would like repeat that back and would do my whole routine and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, so there's something that may be positive coming out of this while I get the phone too.
Yeah,
right?
It's great.
At least they know what that is and they know what my practice is. They know when I go to meetings on Sunday, they don't know where. I show them the scary church where I go.
Yeah.
And like,
they're really young. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's nice to share meditation in a way that tells your kids that your time isn't like they have to adhere to leaving you alone. Like they now have an understanding. There's an inclusiveness to that I think is very cool. Because we can sort of sequester ourselves off and the family can be kind of like, he's doing that thing, well, which isn't necessarily helpful.
And sometimes they come down and sometimes I'm like, in the middle, I'll be like 3.5 minutes into it. And, knocking, come down, stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, if I overreact here, this is going to screw everything up.
That's right.
So instead, I'll just be like, before this, let's do the 57-second thing and then go that way. But some days it only takes me a minute.
Yeah.
There's a solid minute. That's kind of all I need.
Yeah. I mean, I go to some meditation meetings where all you do is a minute. I remember when I first started going to those, I thought, what use is this? Because in those days I would meditate for like 20 minutes to a half an hour.
Sure.
And which I really don't need to do, but I felt that I did at the time. But those are great. And there's a lot to get out of a minute. And there are times when I'm in meditation meetings or whatever where you're just doing a minute, and that's plenty.
Yeah.
And frankly, the thing about meditation, which is that it's like it's called a practice for a reason. Like I can meditate during the day, right? I can get myself to that zone for 30 seconds or a minute when I need it. Yeah. Because I have so much repetition of doing it for longer times or whatever. So
4, 6, 8 breaths.
Yeah, that's
6,
it. Well,
4,
I do that.
8,
I mean, I did the circle breath before I did Godot every single act of every single show.
Nice. Yeah.
I couldn't not do it.
Yeah, right.
It was like it just recalibrated my nervous system, and then I was ready to go on. We talked about this. I don't like getting too high, and I don't like getting too low. That doesn't mean that it's boring or flat, but joy to me is like equanimity. It's sanity. It's serenity. It's an evenness. It's the middle path, and that can be mistaken by people as being middle of the road or boring or flat or whatever. It really isn't any of those things. What I love about meditation, when I feel joy in meditation, what I generally am feeling is an evenness. I'm not way up here. I'm not way down here. I'm just in this really sort of even place. That to me is like that's the sweet spot.
Yeah. So what is the physical part of this too? Which, I mean, how much of physical exercise is part of your recovery? Whatever part of your practice.
Yeah, it's a big part. I mean, I had PTSD stuff too. So there was early on when I was discovering that how how important. I've always been into exercise, but sort of the right kind of exercise that worked for everything. Because when I was younger, I was more aggressive, so it was a lot of weights and a lot of really intense whatever. Now it's mostly cycle and some a lot of Pilates and some free weights, but and a lot of yoga stuff, stretching stuff. But I discovered pretty early on how important diet, exercise, and rest was on the mental state and on various issues. So I don't really mess with it. So I'm 3 to 4 days a week working out. And again, it's usually cycled now. It's not, you have to be careful that I don't overdo it. Because it's I'm getting older and my body will respond if I do.
Got it.
But I was in really good shape for the show, thankfully, because I just work out a lot. So
did you take your shirt off and take pictures and just
no, I'm not that guy. Yeah. And I'm not even really doing it for I thought about that too. At one point, for the show, I had to get gaunt because he's a tramp.
Yeah.
And I was stop doing push-ups. I don't want to be walking out there with giant pectorals.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, all of that stuff came to mind.
And then what did you do with your family?
They went back and forth. I mean, they were able to come quite a bit because it was through a bunch of holidays.
Yeah.
So they were out for the whole chunk of the summer before I started.
Okay.
For a really long time. And then, through rehearsals, and then they were there for previews, they were there for opening night. And then they were gone for a chunk. My son had to start school. My wife had to help him with school, obviously, and she had her job back in LA. And they would come out for the holidays for weeks at a time.
Sure.
But I was alone most of the time. It's just that I was really in a monk-like situation. So, I miss them a lot. But frankly, it made it easier in some ways because I had no distractions and I really had to do nothing every day but the play and nothing else.
How was the relationship between you and Keanu since you guys have been friends for so long and then you have to do this intense play every night? Or did you have to
No, I mean, we were joined at the hip. It helped that we're really good friends and we give each other space anyway.
Yeah, okay.
So... I had kind of wondered that going in, not in a serious way, but I think we both laughed about it. Will we be friends when we come out the other end?
Yeah.
It really was unimpactful. I think we both had, it was stressful. So we had each other and pretty early on, it was great. I'm doing this with someone who I get along with. That's really helpful in this situation. B, it's helpful because it's a play about intimate relationships with a long-term friend.
Yeah.
And we can use so much stuff. And I told him this. There were times when I'm looking at him on stage and he's Estragon and he's Keanu and I'm thinking about stuff that happened between us almost 35 years ago that have to do with the dialogue I'm saying and the emotions I have to conjure up. And they are literally about this guy. It was very trippy and uncommon. So I think we were both grateful we could use so much of it because it was really even. We bickered more on Bill and Ted than we did on Godot.
I mean, would you feel like you're closer after?
Oh, for sure. In some ways, though, I've known the guy a really long time.
No, yeah. But I mean, it's just it kind of feels like you're going through some sort of, it's a moment where some people could consider it traumatic in some way. So there is a little bit of trauma bonding.
Maybe. Weirdly, movies are traumatic, right? Okay. So we've been through that kind of stuff because it's the Bill and Ted movies are really hard to make. And there's always points while we're making them going, is this going to work at all? And what do we do to get it to work? And it's not working and blah, 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 blah. But on this, I think it was more intimacy than trauma that bonded. I feel like it was... two guys at 60 years old who both separately and together been through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Doing a play that's about exactly that.
Yeah.
In a time that's really fraught and audiences are coming and you're really feeling how fraught and jacked up the audiences are. So there was an intimacy to it that was really nice, just in terms of being in that zone. And eventually that became a quadrant, right? Because Michael, Patrick Thornton played Lucky, joined that, was part of that, and Brandon Durden, who played Pazzo, and the four of us became quite close as friends. And so it became kind of a quartet. But I was wondering if it was going to cause friction, and we really had none. And I think we just knew that it wouldn't serve our, like you said, it's like the things that were stressful or traumatic would have been made more stressful and traumatic had there been friction between the two of us.
Yeah.
And I think in an unspoken way, we figured that out really early. Like,
So you kind of protected each other
we protected each other. We were not snapping at, like, if we're doing Bill and Ted, like, I'll come up with a line, he'll snap at me, or he'll say something and I'll snap at him or whatever.
Right.
It's fraternal.
Yeah.
You know, we love each other, but there really wasn't any of that on this. So, which is interesting and a little bit surprising.
So when the play ends, you do the curtain call, you guys bow, you go backstage, then do you discuss what just happened, or is it just like decompress?
I think we thought we were going to do that, but you decompress. Yeah. And what we would do is very frequently, because we both would get to the theater really early. I mean, I would get there 3 hours and change before every show. And I would start working on a whole bunch of stuff and a lot of physical and vocal stuff. But we would end up sort of in a huddle before the show going, that thing you're doing where this happens, why don't we try X or Y? And we'd try business more than assessing something essential about the material.
Right.
The thing is, we really started working on these characters years before we started. The two of us, we would meet at my office in here in LA or at his house, and we would at least once a month read the whole play, do script analysis, talk about it. We went to the archives in Reading, UK, met with the biographer, went to the archives at UCLA. We came to rehearsal with our characters, not locked in any way, but in terms of how we interrelated with a very specific idea who they were. That didn't really change that much as the show went on. A lot of details did, business, but not really the undergirding of what we were doing.
So show ends, you leave, go home, you go eat, or
go home, sometimes eat, depending, and then crash. And take a bath and crash. I would stretch, take a bath, and crash, like a salt bath.
And not
every night.
Speaking to anybody, I mean, do you guys do like meet and greet or anything like that?
We had to do meet and greets, and there'd be people who'd come backstage, and I'd usually be in an altered state. People would be like, "Oh, it's good to see you." I'm like, I had no memory of seeing you whatsoever. I was in a completely altered state after the show. It'd be like, if you're a runner, it's like running a mini marathon. Where everything is so keyed up that you're just not even really
running a mini marathon thinking about death.
Exactly. Well, don't you do that when you're running? So we would meet people, but it wasn't like, hey, we're going to go to hang out at Joe Allen's and then go to this party. And then zero, like literally zero of that.
And was that ever a thought that came to mind? Because you're just like, there was like a lot of heat behind that play, and I mean, tickets were expensive. I mean, it was popular, right?
We were selling out, which was really nice.
And you're having that moment and then navigating that in its own way, because we've talked about that, like visibility and like how that can fuck with your head as well. And were you prepared for that part of it too? Like doing the rounds, doing like the talk
shows, right? All of that. Yeah. I mean, I knew it was coming. I hunkered down for it. I was grateful for it because it was helping the show. There were certain things that were really fun, like, being on Colbert is fun. He's a really smart guy. It's interesting. It was a kick in the pants for me to be on Colbert that way. We had gone on during COVID, but so we couldn't actually go to his office when Bill and Ted came out. So, there were things that were fun and sweet. It was, I was on Broadway as a kid, and I've been through a lot of stuff since then. And it was very surreal to see my face on a marquee. And there was a weird muscle memory of going to the stage door every day that I used to have when I was a kid. That was the same. And Broadway isn't like very glam, like a lot of show business isn't. Like, just like you have trailers on movies that are often kind of gross and not like what people think they are. Broadway dressing rooms aren't incredible. My dressing room was tiny. It was like a broom closet, which is all I needed. I felt like it was my little Zen monk monastery that I could go hide in. So it wasn't like we were surrounded by a lot of like opulence or anything. But I was also, I wouldn't say avoiding it, I wasn't engaging with it by design. Like, I was going home and I wasn't meeting people. And I wasn't meeting people during the day. And I I led a very monastic life, and I really put all my focus on being able to play this character. And I just lost myself in the work.
Mm-hmm. Was there a point in your career where you felt like you did crave that sort of attention and kind of brought it into your life in a way that
I
may
think,
have been unhealthy?
Sure. I think when you're young, it's really hard to navigate the difference between, like, it's pretty complicated because you do have to put on a show and it's your job. And you also, it's nice. Like, you know, I'm kind of introverted, but it's fun to be on a talk show.
People clapping for you.
Yeah, and the guys are cool and people are seeing it. And like,
Sure.
you know, you get calls from people you went to grade school with. And like, you'd have to be a big curmudgeon to just, you know, people who say about Bill and Ted, oh, is it this nightmare for you? I'm like, well, not really. Like, it's kind of cool to be someone that 5-year-olds run up to in the street.
Yeah.
I don't have resentment towards it, but it is a lot emotionally. And it's a weird, so when you're young, most people don't, unless they're just crazy mature for their age, they just don't, especially if they started young, which I did, when you're still getting that affirmation from your parents, right? Like I started at 8, 9, 10, when I was still like working through parental affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're getting like, I was on these big stages or like doing TV commercials or whatever it was and getting this affirmation. And I always had this love-hate relationship with it where I was like, oh, that feels really good, but it also feels really uncomfortable. And it's that duality that I think can really screw people up.
Yeah.
And so by the time I did Freaked, the movie that I made for 20th Century Fox, which I directed with Tom Sterner, I went to NYU Film School with, I mean, that movie in a fun way, because it's a big, crazy comedy. My character plays a child actor who's just a complete asshole.
Right.
And it was a commentary on image and because he gets turned into a literal freak. And it wasn't accidental. Like I was playing a version of Bill, like my Bill character, who was just a bastard, like the sort of hell version of it, who had just gotten completely jaded by celebrity. And there was an aspect of me by the time I did Freak that was really fed up with it and wanted to leave. And I did.
Right.
And it wasn't the business that I was fed up with. It was my relationship to celebrity and being known and how disconnected that felt from who I was. It felt like it was happening to someone else. It's a very fracturing, uncomfortable thing.
Yeah.
Some people make peace with it and they just become that guy. Like more power to them. I did not, that's not how I'm wired. So it just kind of schismed me at a certain point.
I mean, it's interesting about what you said with that character, Bill, right? And then I think that most people would assume that, oh, well, you'd be annoyed by that because I do more in my life. And like, how can people just think of me that way? But I think it's because you've done so much stuff behind the camera, know the business like inside and out.
Yeah.
And can see it as a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of rare in some way. I mean, have you seen other people kind of not handle that stuff very well?
Of course. You know, and there was times when I didn't handle it well. You know, I think around Bill and Ted 2, it was really, I was not probably in the best headspace.
Yeah.
And I wasn't handling it so great.
Yeah.
And I could be, you know, like, it's, you know, I say this to my kids, I'm like very grateful that social media showed up well after my like terrible 20s.
Sure.
Because I would be so like done. But, you know, you read a lot of interviews with child actors and they put this whole armor on, you know, and it's all this bullshit. And I always feel for them, you know, like and an actor suddenly says something stupid and it gets picked up and goes viral and they're really young and they're like super in the spotlight. And I feel like, I mean, I don't know, this person's really young, like cut them some slack, you know? So people, I think everyone screws up. And like almost all my interviews from when I was young were like very arrogant and sarcastic and caustic because I was really uncomfortable, you know? And
it was you're like also a theater kid too, which is just like you know. Yeah,
I was a snotty film school kid too. On top of it. So it was like, I was like a multitude of annoying traits.
Jeez.
But
insufferable,
100%. Yeah. When someone calls you precocious, it means that you're insufferable, right? So I was often being called precocious. You know, and I just and knowing myself, I just know that internally I was just really uncomfortable, like incredible. I just really didn't know how to sort of navigate that kind of public. Now, you know, when people ask me that, like, oh, you're just known for Bill or whatever, I'm like, well, no, I'm not. Like, that's such a weird, like, to me, there's no reality in that perception.
But who says that to you?
Usually press.
Yeah.
The only people who care about this stuff are
Right.
like entertainment journalists.
Got it.
Yeah, no one else does. The public doesn't care. The public doesn't think about me at all.
Because I was curious about that, because I was like, I'm like, because I told you too, I never, like those movies weren't actually kind of the ones that I felt like I grew up with, weirdly enough.
Yeah, it's a
right?
specific group of culture of people.
But
for sure.
I'm familiar with it too. Right. And I'm like, I had this thought before. I'm just like, man, has he ever said the word like excellent and earnest, or do you just like hate him fucking self because like he just like sees other people say it and just like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I just don't feel any relationship. It's just a part. Like, for me, it was, it was a couple of summers over an early period of my life, and I enjoyed doing them, and they kind of blew up, and I'm grateful for that, because you just never, you work really hard to make movies, and you never expect them to take on some kind of cultural longevity.
Right.
So, I mean, I think to turn your nose up at that is a particularly cynical thing to do.
But I mean,
but I get it.
But yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you get that? I mean, it's be kind of a natural reaction, I think, in some ways, because it's just
depends.
Like especially when you are in self-protection mode.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you feel like people aren't seeing you. And
exactly.
You are wired the way you and I are wired.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just
my 20s, for sure, is part of why I left town. For sure.
Yeah.
Like in my 20s, yes, that was bugging. It was bugging me. Not
like the road rage sort of reaction.
Well, not the
like,
Bill and Tedness necessarily, but just more the sort of not being seen of it all.
Sure.
Feeling like the person who I was had because you become an artist. A lot of people go into the arts or writing or any of these forms of expression to express themselves.
Yeah.
That's like the reason they do it, right? And that was always where I found, like I played sports, but I always found myself since I was really young through acting or making films. That was how I expressed myself. When you become famous or a celebrity or whatever, that becomes a different thing. And suddenly the world, in your opinion, is responding to you as this thing, as opposed to the thing that is expressing itself.
Yeah.
And that, when you're young, can be a real problem. It was a lot of anger, but it's hard for me to separate that anger from, because I had a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder at that time that was really, really strong.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to start working on that until my 30s. So that was fueling a lot of anger.
Right.
So, and PTSD is a similar thing. It's a weird collision to be a celebrity with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, because it creates this weird, like you already feel like you're not in your own skin, and then the world is responding to you all the time as if you're something else. It's a head trip.
Yeah. I mean, does fame equal, did you ever understand like fame and success kind of not being the same thing a little bit?
Yeah, they're completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And were you able to kind of separate that? Or
once I left town, I was.
once you left town.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I had so much pressure on me to stay this guy,
Right.
And
because you're then a business and you have managers and you have
the whole
bookers,
machinery.
Sure.
And they're like, be this guy. This guy's doing good for you. And I was like, well, I'm not that guy. I was that guy for 2 summers or whatever, 6 months out of my life or a year or whatever. I'm also this guy and I'm this guy. And I'm like, I want to do other things. And then sort of you have other things eating at you that make you feel like you can't just sort of be even and be yourself.
What's the best way? This is something that you taught me, and it shouldn't have landed as well as it has, because I think I haven't figured mastering it yet. But you were saying that, especially when you're directing, that in order to kind of get what you want and kind of apply your vision, you have to be a little bit difficult sometimes.
Yes.
Right. But there's, how to be skillful and difficult, not being an asshole. It's just like, all of those things where you have to constantly check yourself and figure out exactly what version of you will help everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, pausing is worth its weight in gold. I think that it is. I mean, I know it sounds like easy.
Great insight.
But it will help.
Right.
I mean, that's what I do.
But what does the pause look like? I mean,
the pause looks like I can feel like that I'm getting dysregulated.
Yeah.
And I know, like you just said it yourself, if you have enough of a kind of running self-inventory on yourself, which all of this work is, that's what it is.
Sure.
Then you know yourself. And I think, the example we talked about is like I've been on set and something's irritating me and I don't say anything about it. I bottle it up. Something happens again. Someone may be being terrible.
Yeah.
Like terrible. Because people can be really maladjusted on movie sets. Go figure. And I don't say anything because I don't want to create a thing. And eventually, weeks and weeks later, I just lose it. And I don't lose it in a way that like scares anybody.
Yeah.
But it is not what I wish I would have done. So
It didn't fix anything. It just...
Well, sadly, it can fix things. Unfortunately, it can actually absolutely get you what you want in that moment. But it's not the method I want to use to get what I want. And so it creates a disturbance that I don't think is okay, and I don't like when other people on my sets do it.
Right.
So I really mean the pause. Like it's much harder to do than one thinks. It's like feel that dysregulation coming and going, okay, I'm not taking the bait of my own emotional state. I'm just not taking it. If it means that I don't get what I want in this moment, oh well.
I'm going to reveal this hack to everybody here, unfortunately. I'm going to say that this is the thing that I started doing. And it still sounds, because this is my version of the pause right now.
Yeah.
Which is just like, I just say, how can I help?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of passive aggressive, but it brings me back to some place where it's just like, okay, how do we be productive here? How do I be productive here is really what it is.
But there's authenticity to that too, though, because I think there's a lot in the whole idea of when things are stressful and it's usually we're caught up in our own will. How can I be of service to this moment in some way? Like, what can I offer to this thing as opposed to what I can get from it, like a 4-year-old? So it is flipping that whole script.
Yeah.
Hard. It's really hard. Like I don't say the pause is easy. Like I'm well into recovery. I'm like just starting to get around the pause now-ish.
Yeah, because I think that that's the part too where I still feel like I can't articulate my vision for things very well.
Right.
Editorially here, right? I still struggle where I'm like, I know what I'm supposed to feel.
Yeah.
But I can't really get to it yet.
Yeah.
And then until I get to where it's supposed to feel, everybody else has to suffer for it. But but you understand like the logic of that, where it's just like this, okay, the state that I'm supposed to be in that I can feel is achievable in some way. I just can't get to it. But everybody else is in the way right now.
That's right.
In ways that they don't even grasp, right? But and I can't articulate. So like, when do I get to do that better? When
you've done it more. I hate to, I said this to you before we had this conversation. Right. Some of it's just trial and error. I've been directing since I was 18. I'm like way better at it now that I'm 60 than I was when I was 18.
So when I'm...
But it just took trial and error and practice. And like some of that stuff is field work. Like it's really hard to just wrap your head around it on your own. It's got to get tested out in the field. Though I will say, I'm going to throw another really trite cliche on you that because it works for that stuff is the gratitude aspect.
For fuck's sakes, man.
But it's
too much gratitude on this show. No more.
But it's true.
I get it. I understand.
That's the miracle cure for so many things. Right. And it's internal. It doesn't get spoken. It's just sort of stopping and clocking what's going on and where I'm at. That's happened to me on set sometimes. I'm just like, this thing's being made. You have a dream cast. Like you're really fucking lucky.
Yeah.
Like just calm down.
They're not working against you because that's how I feel. Like I'm just like, well, everybody's clearly out to get me.
There's that whole sort of like everyone's got their own baggage. Like suddenly like it just reorients me as just another sort of person within that flow of like, and I can look at the person because sometimes someone is toxic, right? Someone is coming at me aggressively. And I got to figure out how to deal with that in a work scenario or a life scenario that doesn't, as you said, with my desire too, just light a fuse to it and watch it burn. Right. Because that's my inclination as well. Yeah. And I'm really good at that. I'm really good at blowing stuff up. And it's very satisfying short term.
It is. That's the thing. People like, you shouldn't knock it. I mean, just
it's as high as go. It's one of the better ones.
Nuke shit and it feels great for a little while.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are like always my gaps in employment. Just like, well, I blew this up. Like, what were you doing for 2 years? Just like simmering.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get alone time after that too. Sometimes
you do. Exactly. Sometimes you just need it.
Yeah.
What is this is also something that you're very involved in, and I'm curious about how you apply recovery to the world right now. Because, I mean, obviously you're very politically active too. Or at least, I think humanistically active, where it's just everything that goes on right now, you put yourself out there, right?
Yeah.
And then how do you do that in a healthy, skillful, recovered way?
I don't read the comments. Really important. I mean, it's not even glib. Like there's, I don't engage with the feedback loop, which is really toxic right now. There was a time when I did, sort of early days of this whole specific period we're in, like 2015.
Yeah.
And I was making very political docs, and I sort of stuck my head out of the foxhole a bit on stuff. I'd done a TED talk on some stuff, and so I hadn't gotten used to how toxic the sort of feedback commentary was yet, or could be. And now I just don't engage with it at all. Yeah. But it is tricky. It's just I don't really see what choice some of us have. I feel like if you're an active person and you engage with civil society and civic issues, things are so keyed up right now, and there's so much of a need for people to get involved. I think that you have to have, it's not dissimilar to acting in a way where you have to take a certain amount of personal risk. And I'm used to that. And I have a appetite for risk a little bit, like I have jumped out of airplanes and things like that.
Yeah.
And going on stage is that you have to be I realize I have an appetite for, I don't really care what the audience's response is. Right. My stuff's organized, and if they like it, they do. If they don't, I have no control over it. So I feel like right now you have to be careful and intelligent, but I think that I think we're better off if people put some skin in the game.
Yeah.
Well,
when did you establish principles for yourself, like personal principles?
I mean, they evolved over time, but I've always been really politically. I went to my first protest at 7 years old.
Sure.
I come from a really politically active family, and they were journalists, and they were activists and all that. But I think as an adult, and certainly in recovery, because there's a humility that has to come with effective activism, I think, so that you don't just become part of the problem, where you really acknowledge and understand that you're just a very small part of some larger organism.
Right.
And you're not leading anything. So, those are my values, right? I'm not putting words in some other activist mouth, but for me, it's really has to come from a place of community.
Right.
I'm just doing what I can within some other community. I'm not leading some kind of charge. And that's a very recovery-oriented thing. And
so it's like service and...
Yeah, it's an act of service, and it's something that I want to do and can do and feel that everyone needs to do. But I also am aware of the risk factor, and that there is one, and that there are consequences and there are repercussions, and I'm willing to accept those. And just kind of... But they change. It's weird. It's stakes keep getting higher.
But it becomes difficult these days, especially when I have young kids, and I am trying, and they're aware of stuff that goes on. And sometimes they want to know where I stand. Yeah. And I'm I don't want to scare them either, but I also don't want to avoid the truth. Yeah. Right? And I think that is something that I'm also kind of coming up against when it'll be my 10-year sober anniversary, and I'm going to bring my kids and my wife to that ceremony.
That's great. It's a big deal.
But then I'm like, oh, is that going to just open up this conversation that I'm not ready to have with them yet? Because then they'll know that there's access to things. They can change their feelings in a way that I try to change their feelings.
Right.
That's in the back of my head.
Yeah,
it's just
Yeah.
Because, I also grew up in a household where my parents hid every sort of hard truth from everyone all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mother had breast cancer when I was 10, and my dad told me it was vertigo.
Oh, my Lord. That's such a weird cover for breast cancer.
Well, she did have vertigo.
Right, of course. Yeah, sure. Why not?
But, I was just and 20 years later, it all came together with me. Where I was just she lost her hair. It was just,
but I think that recovery is such a beautiful thing in a family. and it doesn't need to overtake a family, and they everyone knows that they don't have to get as involved as you and whatever. And, and things are so crazy in the world right now that like doing something that's that healthy, I just think lets the kids understand that there are things that we do to live healthier lives at a time when things are very toxic.
Yeah, no. But it is strange that I still feel that little bit of embarrassment around it.
That's okay. Sure. I think we all do. I think that there's an element of, look, I think that shame, guilt, fear, anger, like a lot of these feelings that can burn really high when we're not sober yet.
Yeah.
We're not in recovery yet. They don't ever go away completely.
Sure.
It's more about making peace with them and understanding that they're another part of our psyche that we don't need to pay a whole lot of attention to, but are kind of burning along there. Like I like the fact that I'm not some tub thumping front of the line, because I still feel a little bit of, kind of quietness, grace, whatever you want to call it, a apprehension to be sort of big and bloviating about it. And some of that is also, and I'm with my family, I'm that way. I don't ram it down their throats at all. They know where I go. They know what I'm doing. They're happier that I'm like in a good place and have been like, one of my kids has never known me any other way.
Yeah.
So I don't think any of those feelings completely go away. And I'm always suspect of people who behave that they don't have any of them.
Right.
Like somehow this is somehow wiped away all of their, I don't know. Like it is a daily thing. Like as it says,
Sure,
it is daily.
Sure.
So,
no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But
you didn't get a diploma,
you get a little thing.
Yeah.
So right now, in terms of like, all the quadrants of your life right now, do you feel creatively, professionally satisfied? I mean, more than before, or do you still have
I do actually.
Yeah.
I actually do. I feel really gratified to have done that thing and climbed that mountain. I do feel more, I didn't think I needed to feel more creatively satisfied.
Yeah, right.
I really didn't. I was like, this is really amazing that we have this opportunity to do a Broadway show. Oh my God. Jamie's incredible and our cast members were incredible.
Yeah.
But I came off that experience just like a little changed. And not like, oh, now I think I'm hot shit. Like, not like that at all. The same sort of waking up like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. I got to start all over again. All the same shit that everyone feels every morning,
But I'm sure you know yourself and the circumstances.
Fundamentally, I feel like, no, this was something I didn't realize I needed to do that I've done that I feel I did the best I could. I'm happy with what I did. I'm really happy with our interpretation of the play, and I feel like the audience got what we wanted to do. That's a really satisfying thing to have happen. But I am like working on another movie now and another doc, and like I'm back in the same foxhole of insanity. So, I don't have a lot of time to dwell on it, but it was very gratifying. Yeah.
How do you prioritize what's in front of you?
I literally like have a schedule for my day, like a guy going to the bank job.
Yeah, what I need to do, I do an hour per day on something. That's all that, because then everything else kind of falls into place. But if I have an hour of focus on one thing.
Yeah, I have a similar mentality, which is not to grind.
Yeah.
And I learned that when I was writing a lot, because it was like at a certain point, you're just writing crap.
Yeah.
And you do write, so you get it. But like.
Crap?
Well, maybe you don't. Yeah. I'm speaking for myself.
Yeah, you do write crap. You know what it's like. Yeah,
you're writing hours of crap. You're like, I should stop writing crap. Like go like play with my kids or something.
Right.
But no, at a certain point, you've left the building and you're not getting any juice out of it.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of the stuff that I'm doing with the memoir now, where it's just, I'm like, I've written long features before, but I've never been aware, I think, of the word count as much as I am in my head. It's starting to feel a little bit like I'm doing a research paper in college again.
Right.
But about me.
Yeah. With all the emotional, that's got to be an emotionally loaded. Is it an emotionally loaded thing for you to sit down and do every day, given all of what you went through?
Yes. And in different ways than I suspected. I think I told you like at one point when I had to call one of the lawyers that was it was like one of the Gawker lawyers.
Yeah.
And I called him and I was just like, what happened? Because, I can read about it.
Yeah.
And that gives me a better sense. Am I missing anything?
Yeah.
Because a lot of it, I was just so emotionally checked out.
Yeah,
it was
imagine.
early recovery and
Sure.
like all the
Deer in
all
the
these
headlights.
things. And
Yeah.
all that stuff is happening at once. But the hardest thing for me to really handle was, where were my parents?
Right.
Because my parents handled it poorly, right? And I had one day where just like I called my sister.
Yeah.
And I was like, remind me again, like, why they weren't around. And he's just like, well, I told them not to be because they were being awful. Right. And I just laid down on the carpet for like an hour. And I was just like going through all of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I started to write a memoir about my child acting days when I experienced sort of prolonged trauma.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of stuff down. And two things occurred to me. One was like, do I want to put myself through this? And do I want to put my family through this?
Right.
And but it was helpful to get it down.
Yeah.
So I think that process is really important. I think it's really cool that you're doing this because to have a narrative that sort of merits a kind of public memoir in a story like the story that you have is means you have an ability to do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have the gift of kind of previously written material and an audience that has kind of responded to this stuff in completely different ways.
Yeah.
There are people who are sober, some are not, but I mean, they're all finding something. So I have to do that for myself now, basically.
Course. Yeah,
and that's really the trick of it. Where I was just like, okay, what would I need from this version?
Yeah, and you have to also take care of yourself while you do it.
No, well, that's impossible to do.
Sleep with me, you know